Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel once again, and welcome back to System Shock Radio. So, it's been a little bit, but I am returning, hang a new shirt and new topics for you guys. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. And obviously, I don't mean new shirts, and this is my merch. It's obviously CM Punk, but yes, yeah. So let's get into it. I should drop some merch at some point. In the future, but nevertheless, as always, I got some topics for you guys, and yeah, without further ado, let's get right into the action. So, starting with our first topic, we have that Velma has been canceled. So, this actually, this is actually earlier on this month, on October 9th. 8th, and pretty much saying that Velma had been canceled after 2 seasons. So, the first season dropped, I believe, if not last year, then the year before that. But then the second season wrapped up this year, and it's not coming back for a third, unfortunately. So, if you're wondering, Nigel, what's Velma? So Velma is an animated show about Velma, the character from Scooby-Doo, and it's a show that nobody liked for a variety of reasons. And a lot of people felt that the humor was very crass, and I personally have not seen the show. Not really planning on seeing the show, but a lot of people felt that the humor was way too crass. That Velma is a very unlikable protagonist, and and didn't like several aspects of the show. And Velma apparently got up to some very naughty stuff as a character, and was just an unlikable character. Now, the thing is, unlikable characters is a little bit of a it's a little bit of a not necessarily slippery slope, but a bit contentious. When should a character be unlikable? Should a character even be unlikable? I think having an unlikable character, or admittedly, is kind of tricky. I think Velma's problem is that the unlikable character is the main character. Now, it's one thing for a character to be unlikable when they're the side character, or if they're supposed to be an unlikable character because you root against them. But when your main character, your main protagonist, the person who we're theoretically supposed to root for, or is an unlikable protagonist, there's no reason to latch on to them and stuff like that. And I think that's really what does it and the fact that it's trying to make the Scooby-Doo IP, which obviously Velma is from, a bit more adult oriented, to the point where it feels very, it feels almost cheap and hollow. Like, I think that also doesn't help as well. Now, it's one thing to kind of go a bit more of an adult route with the Scooby-Doo IP. I don't think I'm inherently against that kind of idea. I think it could work potentially, but this show went about it in all the wrong ways. And admittedly, a lot of this is secondhand. Like I said, haven't seen the show, not planning on seeing the show. But it being canceled, I think he says all you need to know. And it's to the point where people didn't even hate watch it anymore. There's times where people hate watch something, where they watch it specifically to watch it fail. But even that leads to views, and whether you like it or not, you still watched it. And so when people don't even watch it, don't even tune in to hate watch it, that's when it really sinks. And I think that's really what happened with Velma here. So maybe back to the drawing board, or perhaps who knows. But yeah, so Velma has been canceled, not renewed for a third season. But the next thing we're going to talk about is a very big and very juicy one. It's finally time to talk about Lunchly, that being the Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, and KSI Lunchable. Oh boy, what a tangled web we weave here. 2024 has been kind of a rough year for all three of these guys. Logan Paul, a lot of people already didn't like Logan Paul, and then that controversy he happened with the Olympian and everything, and that made people really not like Logan Paul. Logan Paul had been getting into some trouble. Lost his United States Championship back over in the WWE. KSI recently released a new song, In the Thick of It. It's to a to to a very, very bad ovation. And I tried to think of a joke of like the opposite of a standing ovation, but I sadly couldn't quite come up with one. A standing boovation, I guess. I guess that works. But yeah, KSI song came out, went over like a lead balloon. Unfortunately, although me personally, I've listened to the song. Is it the worst thing I've ever heard? No. Is it the worst YouTuber song ever? Not even close, but it's definitely not good. So there's that, and then Mr. Beast. He's embroiled in some controversy, not just with the Chris Tyson allegations, but with now. He called out for poor treatment for his show. It's kind of like, I believe it was like the Squid Game inspired show that he did a while back. Like that series of stuff. These three guys have been taking some L's, but and now they collaborated on Lunchly, which was supposed to be like an alternative to Lunchable. Every time something comes out, Mr. Beast has got a top. Try a top. He's got like the Mr. Beast bar. He had like Mr. Beast burger, stuff like that. But Lunchley, he is out, and the crowd went mild. Yeah, that one works. The crowd went mild, but then they got really riled up when a lot of people found mold in their Lunchley. Yeah, mold. The last thing you want to find in a food product. One of the major selling points for the Lunchley is that it's supposed to be a healthy alternative. It's supposed to be using real cheese instead of processed cheese, and there's a reason it's processed. That's like, look, processed food and stuff like that, at adding chemicals and stuff like that to the food. That's been the subject of much talk and debate for a while now. So I'm not gonna weigh in on it heavily, but finding mold in food is a big no-no. It's a point where multiple people will have found mold in their Lunchleys, essentially. Plus, hearing that the Lunchley itself isn't even that good. But being swept up in that controversy, as well as advertisement for it. I don't think I've seen a single ad for Lunchley, but from what I heard, it's not great. Sadly, taking yet another L. Like in a year where all three guys' reputations have already taken a big hit for other reasons, and this essentially adding on to the pile. Definitely, it sucks for that. Really, I think the one whose reputation was hurt the most is probably Mr. Beast. Throughout the course of the year, we've seen kind of his public image and everything do this like total 180. Logan and KSI to an extent as well. Logan Paul's reputation was already kind of but I think Mr. Beast especially, and I'm not making this as a hit piece. I'm not trying to cancel Mr. Beast, cancel KSI, cancel Paul. That's not what I'm here to do. Just we're here to talk about it because I find that it's interesting and probably a cautionary tale to not be overzealous, I guess, and really do research before you decide to put out a product like that so you don't have a situation like this. Because finding mold in food, especially like food that people just bought, is not great. Especially coming from someone who I used to work in a grocery store before my current job, and sadly, mold happens in food. I've seen mold in food right in the store, or it does happen, but for it to happen so quickly, among other problems with like Lunchleys and stuff like that, just yet another blow. But speaking of blows and damaged reputation, let's talk a little bit about not just the Vince McMahon documentary, but the lawsuit that he's found himself in. Now, Sadly, I still haven't gotten around to watching the documentary yet. For a couple reasons. For starters, I kind of have the attention span of a fruit fly sometimes, but also because life been kind of busy with other stuff. But I definitely do want to watch the documentary at some point. I heard it's very interesting, and there's quite a bit of controversy with that, with Vince trying to Vince and others trying to discredit a lot of what the documentary stated just for that to be immediately rebutted. And Vince even leaving mid documentary, not necessarily wanting to finish it. And apparently, the documentary was weighed well in advance before the allegations came out. The Grant stuff came out around 2022. I think this documentary was filmed around 2021 on or so. This has been. So I guess this had been in production for a little while, but I definitely want to watch the documentary at some point. But now, Vince and the rest of the McMahon family, and WWE kind of find themselves in even more trouble, as they are now facing a negligence lawsuit. So this is courtesy of USA Today. Hey, I'm just gonna read an excerpt from this article. It says that 5 former ring boys, it's in quotation marks in the article. 5 former ring boys who worked with WWE have filed a lawsuit against the company, founder Vince McMahon, his wife Linda McMahon, and TKO Group Holdings, alleging negligence for allowing systemic and pervasive abuse of underage children. The complaint and demand for a jury trial was filed on behalf of 5 John Does in Baltimore County Circuit Court on Wednesday. It alleges the McMahons and which it is worth mentioning. This article came out on October 23rd, so only a few days ago. But 5 former ring boys who work with WWE filed a lawsuit against the company, founder Vince McMahon, his wife Linda McMahon, TKO Group Holdings, alleged negligence for allowing systemic and pervasive abuse of underage children. The complaint and demand for a jury trial was filed on behalf of 5 John Does in Baltimore County Circuit Court on Wednesday. It alleges the McMahons knew about and failed to stop decades of sexual assaults from the 1970s to early 1990s, perpetuated by former WWE ring crew chief Melvin Phillips Jr. The complaint alleges Phillips, who died in 2012, hired underage boys as young as 12 years old to assist the ring crew in preparation for WWE shows, then groomed and abused them. Phillips' real motivation in luring the ring boys with the promise of gaining access to the popular WWE events was to sexually abuse them, the suit alleges. And Vince McMahon knew it, admitting he was aware, at least as early as the 1980s, that Phillips had a peculiar and unnatural interest in young boys. Jessica Rosenberg, an attorney for McMahon, said in a statement to USA Today Sports that the allegations are false claims that stem from New York Post columnist Phil Mushnick's reporting of the abuse 32 years ago. The negligence claims against Mr. McMahon that were asserted today rely on the same absurd, defamatory, and utterly meritless statements by Mr. Mushnick, and we will vigorously defend Mr. McMahon and are confident the court will find that these claims are untrue and unfounded, Rosenberg said. So, is worth mentioning, just for the record, is worth mentioning that these are still fresh. This is an emerging story, and these are still the allegations for now. More specifically, a lawsuit alleging, not the lawsuit itself is alleged, but what the lawsuit is alleging. I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah. So, but I say that to say that because of that, details are still emerging, so we don't quite have the full story yet. But if this is the case, if what's being alleged is true, then that just makes things even worse. Now, admittedly, I was unfamiliar with it. I wasn't familiar with Mel Phillips. I wasn't familiar with this story. So learning about it and hearing about it it's pretty shocking if that did happen. And apparently there had been some rumblings of it some time ago as well. And the article even mentions Phil Mushnick, who not too familiar with Phil Mushnick. The only reason I remember that name and kind of recognize that name is because I know Jim Cornette did a shoot interview when he was still in WWF many moons ago. But But that was probably talking about something else. But if this is the case, then that's pretty bad, and it could lead to some problems, not just for TKO, but for the McMahon family as well. Oh, and some problems between TKO Group Holdings and the McMahon family, because if TKO had known that this was going on, there's a chance they might not have they might not have bought and did the merger with WWE. So that might be, it might hurt their image as well. So, again, things still emerging, but sadly, it's not looking good. And between this, the documentary, and how the lawsuit with like Janelle Gray and everything, and how that's further evolved over these past couple of years, there's hints we're starting to learn a lot more and more about Vince McMahon and stuff like that. And so it is pretty shocking. It's pretty heartbreaking as well. But yeah, but the next thing we're going to talk about is that we may be getting an interesting match coming up soon. Potentially, as my light accidentally went out, we may potentially be getting Jacob Fatu versus Bron Breakker. So, reading the excerpt from this article, this is courtesy of Inside the Ropes Wrestling, and I'm just going to read an excerpt from it. So, it says that on the October 21st episode of Monday Night Raw, Solo Sikoa declared that he and the Bloodline want to help Jey Uso retain his Intercontinental Championship in his title defense against Bron Breakker later in the night. Bloodline's presence at ringside led to a stare down between Breakker and Jacob Fatu, which got a massive reaction from the crowd inside the Wells Fargo Arena in Philadelphia. However, the Bloodline didn't help Uso retain his title. Instead, Fatu took out Uso during the bout, allowing Breakker to pick up the Intercontinental Championship for a second time. According to a new report on WrestleVotes Radio as part of Sportskeeda's Backstage Pass, the reaction from the Philadelphia crowd when Fatu and Breakker faced off was not expected, and those backstage were pleased with how the segment came off. And we have a quote here saying, "We're told there was heavy internal praise on how well this came off, especially reaction from the live crowd in Philadelphia. We're told that numerous people backstage enjoyed it and were almost stunned by how big a reaction these two men got." Now, here's what I'll say about it. I imagine they probably are surprised, probably weren't expecting that reaction. But a couple things. For starters, seriously? Like a lot of people like Jacob Fatu. A lot of people like Bron Breakker. They are two big men who can do very athletic things for guys their size. The prospect of them coming together would be very nice. I'm surprised. I'm surprised they were surprised by how big a reaction that got. I'd probably be salivating at the idea of Bron Breakker versus Jacob Fatu as well. Now it's probably gonna be a while before they do it because they probably don't necessarily want to do heel versus heel. But yeah, that'd be a big match, and a lot would be on the table with a match like that. But the second is, now that you got the reaction, and definitely consider going with it. Like this would be the opportunity to prove that this is a new era in WWE, because sadly, a lot of moments like that sometimes got swept under the rug under the old regime, where they were never followed up on again, leaving fans asking what if. But now, this is the perfect time to capitalize on it. Maybe you do go for that Bron Breakker face turn he was apparently supposed to have, and then went back on it to attack Jey Uso in the New Day. But listen to the crowd reaction and definitely go from there, because Jacob Fatu and Bron Breakker, that's definitely a money match idea. That is a match I'm sure a lot of people would love to see. I know I definitely would love to see it. And so yeah, consider going with that match. You heard the crowd reaction, and even on paper, that match sounds like it'd be an interesting one and a lot of fun. You got some meat, you got some athleticism, you got some crazy high flying moments. Like, why wouldn't you want to do something like that? Like, do a match like that? That'd be an interesting match, even on the prospect alone. It's not one where you have to build a big feud over it. You absolutely could, and it definitely would help elevate it. But it's one where it kind of writes itself, because, as I'm sure, this is something that a lot of people would be interested in seeing. But Let me know in the comments, would you like to see a Bron Breakker versus Jacob Fatu match? Me, I am definitely all for it. A lot of people were excited when Bron Breakker, even through NXT, and then coming up to the main roster, and some of the matches he would have. When Jacob Fatu finally made his way to WWE, a lot of people were excited. So, well, definitely, why not do a match like this? But next thing that we're going to talk about. Oh, yes, there's 6 topics on this episode. I normally don't do the 6. I normally just stick to the 5. But you know what? Today, I figured I'd make an exception because, ladies and gentlemen, we officially have 500 episodes of Botchamania in the book. So just recently, Matthew uploaded episode 500 of Botchamania. So 500 episodes in of Botchamania. So, me personally, I'd be lying if I said I was a day one Botchamania fan. I didn't get into them until pretty late in their lifespan. I don't remember around which episode I got in. I know it's been a couple years now, but Botchamania has been around for quite a bit. It took a little hiatus because they got some copyright strikes from AEW, who I remember when that happened. That was a while ago. I think that's when I think that's around when I got into Botchamania, which, if that's the case, then that's actually kind of sad. But yeah, so Botchamania has been around for a while, providing wrestling fans with just about everything you'd want. On some action and some laughs, some goofy botches, some romance, a little bit of romance, and some adventure, or some wrestling memes that will live forever or in our hearts and minds. So, to Matthew, if you're watching this, which you more than likely aren't, congratulations to 500 episode. Here's hoping to 500 more. And yeah, so congratulations to Botchamania. But the last thing I want to talk about is an interesting one, and that is how to deal with a toxic friendship. And really, I guess this could be toxic relationship, but I think I'll keep it a friendship for this one. No, I am going to go for a toxic relationship. Because friendship can fall under relationships. Not every relationship is a friendship. But every friendship is a type of relationship. So, you know what? We're gonna call an audible. We're gonna change up the finish a little bit. It's as usually does happen in wrestling. How to deal with a toxic relationship, because I feel like this is something that is important, and it will help you deal with a toxic friendship as well. So, how do you deal with a toxic relationship? First, you got to ask yourself, how do you know if your relationship is toxic? That's probably what you're asking me. It's like, Nigel, how would I even know that relationship is toxic? There's a few different ways to see if you have a toxic relationship. That being relationship with your significant other. That could be friendship. That could even be family, which is unfortunate. But how do you know if it's a toxic relationship in that regard? How do you know if it's a topic? How do you know if it's a toxic relationship dynamic? There's a few things to keep an eye on if you're always at odds with each other, if there's no love being exchanged, if you always feel like you got to walk on eggshells around them, if you feel like you can't talk to them about things, if you feel like you're unable to converse with them on anything, if you find yourself always avoiding them instead of embracing them, those are just a few signs. I'm sure there's several more. This is something that a lot of people have talked about, but yeah, I've been in some toxic situations a few times in my life. It's definitely not fun, but how do you go about it? How do you circumvent it? Because you have to confront it. You can't stay there, or else things are just gonna continue to deteriorate. And yes, I know sometimes in a relationship dynamic, oftentimes you're gonna be at odds. You might disagree on things. That's fine. But when it gets to the extreme of it becoming dangerous and hostile, that's definitely that's a major sign in that regard. But how do you go about it? How do you go about circumventing it? How do you end up confronting this toxic relationship dynamic? There's a few different ways, I would say. The first is probably an obvious one, probably a given, and but you talk about it. You really talk about it, and this is I would say the main one. I go as far as say this is the main way. Hey, you sit down with the person you're having issues with and say, look, here's my concerns. Here's why I feel the way I feel. So how do you feel the way you feel? Have a genuine, honest conversation with them, and with yourself. Which we'll come back to that. We'll hold on to that, but we'll come back to that. But you have an honest, his genuine conversation with the person, saying, "Hey, this is what I'm noticing. These are the red flags I'm noticing. What do we do about this?" And if the person avoids you and doesn't want to talk, then you'll know that's your answer right there. But when you talk with someone and you have actual dialogue, it can lead to a lot of things being left on the table. Well, not all of them will be good, not all of them will be comfortable, but you can really analyze things to see what's really going on here. Right? And I think that's the problem in a lot of relationships. Why a lot of relationships fall through, and again, not just romantic relationships, but friendships and stuff like that. Is that there's no communication, and because there's no communication, and then nothing gets done, and you're both stuck in that situation. But the other way to tell if things are toxic in your relationship dynamic is to going back to what I was bringing up earlier, really evaluate yourself. Evaluate that person and evaluate yourself, and be honest. Have an honest, genuine conversation with yourself. And I think that's another reason why a lot of relationships fail, is because we don't talk to other people, but we also don't talk to ourselves. Talking to yourself is seen as crazy and not good, but oftentimes it can be the realest interactions that you have, the realest, genuine conversations that you have, can oftentimes be with yourself, saying, am I the problem? Is the other person the problem? Or am I the one doing it? It really analyze what's going on. Analyze yourself, your actions that have led to the situation, and say, am I the toxic one? And in some cases, you might be. To be totally honest, I found myself in a few situations like that. So I had to really analyze and say, hey, am I the toxic one in this dynamic? And if that's the case, fix that. But when you go through that, and really those steps should be flipped, have that conversation with yourself, and then have the conversation with the other person. And if then and it still doesn't work out and things are still toxic, then it may be time to go. And I know that's easier said than done. It's hard to leave something that you've been attached to for so long, but toxic relationships can slowly kill you. It can slowly eat away at you. Who think of it like an addiction, and to like drugs or something like that. Hey, you may be addicted. You may enjoy it for the time being, but what damage will it do to you in the long term? Think about that. What will be the long term consequences for what's happening, and what you're consuming and everything, and if that makes any sense. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to really evaluate things. And I guess another major step is to acknowledge that there's a toxic situation. And because oftentimes we may be blind to how toxic a situation is, and thus we do nothing about it because we think everything's fine. Think about the meme of the dog in the fire saying, "This is fine." I know that one's supposed to be more ironic, but sometimes we really are blind to our own circumstances, which is where that self-inventory comes in. But I want you to take inventory, not just of yourself, but others, and your relationship and dynamic with others, and really evaluate things. Are things toxic? Are things not as good as they should be, or that they could be? And then go from there. Talk with the person about it. Talk with yourself about it, and go from there. And if that fails, leave, because that's not a situation that you need to be in, and it'll be better for your physical health, for your mental health, and for your emotional health. And yes, emotional health and mental health are important because oftentimes those can lead to problems with your physical health. Make sure all pillars of your life are secure, or all health pillars, I should say. Your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, health, all that. But nevertheless, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends, and turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload videos you can see who drops, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts on anything we talked about in this episode. And of course, if this is your first episode, welcome, and I hope you enjoyed. But if not, welcome back. But if you are indeed new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button, and as well as leaving a like and a comment, and let me know what you thought in the comments below. But nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.